Good tip, right? If you ever need to feel really great about yourself, just reach out to somebody in marketing and have them write it up about you. So today we're going to talk about aging powerfully, and like she said, my name is Wanda. I started my career in multifamily housing, so I've worked with, families with young children, and then I decided to start working with active adults. We're going to use some terms that the United States has decided to label us as we age. So hopefully today you're going to spend some time thinking about the word aging and the word old. I just want to throw it out there, the word old. Okay? So we're going to talk about these things and what they actually mean. Because does anybody even know what they mean? So I have this wonderful clicker that I did not try out. So let's see if it works. And it doesn't work. Oh, it worked multiple times. Okay, how many of you actually have a cell phone with you? This is like the first time I'm going to ask you to pull your cell phone out. We're in a society today where I don't understand the headphones stuck in your ear the whole entire time. I mean, we're like, you got to have somebody talking in your ear the whole time. So grab your cell phone, open up a text message. Everybody texting? No, not really.
I'm faster typing.
I'm going to ask you a question, and you can type in the answer. If you don't want to do this, we're a small enough group. It's really designed for larger groups. But if anybody want to share how old they are. How old are you? 82 and a half. Yes, ma'am. 82. 69. 70. 72. 76. 68. 75. Jeff. Double nickels. 65. How old? 44. Y'all are really close.
Yeah.
So I apologize for being up in your business.
No problem. We can scooch down.
No, you're right. I'll move around lots, but I can't move around over there because it's bright light. So when you talk about aging, what do you think the average age is in this room?
70.
About 70. I would actually agree with that statement. So if the average age in here is 70, and by the way, I'm 50, so if anybody wants to know, about to be 51.
Oh, I thought you said 44.
Oh, no. They're 44. Yeah. 44 left me a while ago. 44 is when the body started breaking down. So the average age in this room, we're going to say, is about 70 years of age. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to kind of walk you through the age of the United States and the population, because I think this is super relevant to when we want to talk about what is aging, okay? So in 1900s, in the United States, the average age was about 25, it was mid-20s, okay? In 1950, the average age was about 29. In 2010, the average age was 38.8. Now, for all the women in the room, that's the average. But here's what I'm going to share with you. The average age of a woman in 2010 was 40. So when you think about our population today, I want you to think about what the average age of our population is. So for women, it's 40. For men, it's 37.7. So not only do we outnumber you, we do outlive you, and we're older than you, on average. Okay? Yes, ma'am?
COVID changed the numbers a lot. Didn't COVID
Well, I'm about to, it did change the numbers, so I'm about to show you statistics for 2024. Okay? So, this showed up much better than on my tiny little computer screen. So we decided in the United States, because we really love labels. We love labels. We love to put people in little buckets, right? And so we decided in the United States to name the generations. So how many people in here born 1946 to 1964? You're the baby boomers, right? And we're going to round up. So 21% of the United States is baby boomers. And that puts you up up to 78, correct? If you were born in 78? Yeah. And then Generation X, how many in the room 1965 to 1980?
We're on the cusp.
You're right on the cusp.
So we're technically 80, but yeah. So
Yeah.
we're
You're technically 80?
Depends on who's you call. I've given talks on being a millennial because people cut that in different places.
They do. Yeah, they do. So again, interpretation. And everybody has their own interpretation. That's how we have speakers like myself. This is my interpretation. And then of course you have your millennials, but 19.5% are Generation X, and the baby boomers are 21%. That's a pretty big chunk. So it comes down to the question, and this is what I'm asking you all, what is old? No, but yeah, what is old?
That are 10 years older than me.
People that are 10 years older than you. Okay, I like that. I really like that. Somebody that's older than me is old. That's the way I would look at it. But really, think about it, and I'd love to hear your feedback. What is old?
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Perspective
Okay.
of who is talking, who is asking, and who is they're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could say, I want everybody who is either 10 years younger than me or older than me. So I think it's just perspective.
It is. Does anybody else have a different perspective on what is old? Yes, ma'am.
I think it's a state of mind too.
Yeah?
I know
Yep.
people who are in their late 70s who are not old. They're moving, they're vibrant, they're, and then you see someone else at the same age and you go, wow,
They're old.
they're really old.
Yes, sir.
Someone who is no longer dreaming or planning or helping others.
Okay. So another state of mind. It's when you stop deciding to live and dream and grow. That is what we consider old. Does anybody know what Webster's dictionary says about old? Okay, I have to read this, and I do require glasses. And I want to get it right, so I'm actually going to read the definition. So Webster says old just says lived a long time, not young. So here we have this dictionary that defines every word we speak. And does that define old to you? Like, everybody has a different perspective. So it's interesting because the life expectancy, does anybody know what the life expectancy is in the United States right now for the average human being? We're going to average it. I'm going to average it. Okay? 85? It's actually 79. Okay? Good guesses, right? They're super close. So it's interesting. Do anybody know what the life expectancy was of somebody in 1965?
71.
Who said 65? You are super duper close. 66.5. So I'm going to ask you this question again. What is old? If in 1950 the average person died by 66.5, if I was to tell my husband, hey, babe, you got 2.5 more years to live, what do you think he would do? My husband is European. He's an Irish citizen. He just applied for his American citizenship after living in America for 30 years. You think it's about time? And paying taxes and Social Security, it's about time, right? I will tell you that if somebody told me, hey, you got 10 years expectancy left to live, I would probably quit my job and do this full time. I would do this full time because really, what is old? It doesn't make any sense for us to keep using terminology like old. America has shifted. We have changed. Our perception on aging also needs to change because at 66.5 in 1950, 40 was old. The average age of a woman in 2024 is 40. So also let's talk about the year 2034. Everybody always hears about this tsunami of the baby boomers hitting, right? Like our age demographic. So we're projected to be much, much older by 2034. In fact, in 2034, how old will you be in 2034? 54. In 2034, good job on math. I don't do it in my head so much. I'm in sales and marketing. We don't do math. In 2034, older adults, and they're American people, qualify older adults as 65 or older. In 2034, there will be more 65 or older in the United States than people under the age of 18. Does anybody know why?
You're not having as many children.
Oh my gosh, I was so hoping somebody would say that. So actually, there's two reasons. And people are living longer. So we're living longer, right? So if our age expectancy right now, or life expectancy, gotta love the Social Security Administration, they'll give you a little actuary chart. And based on your health and all this other stuff, they're gonna project how long you live. Would you like, I would not want to know, personally, but they're projecting us to live, I think it was 82 by 2034. We're gonna live to the age of 82 on average. In 1965, the average household had 2.44 kids. I don't know where the 44 comes from. It's that math thing again. And today, our average household has 1.7. So for somebody who doesn't do math, I do lots of statistics and metrics. So again, the question, when we spend some time on this page of what is old, because we need to think about it differently. And it starts with all of us in this room. It starts with small cohorts of people at a time defining what is old. I love this picture. I train folks who want to work in senior living, okay? I train people to connect with others, to understand people's different perspectives, and to connect with people. We now, since COVID, live in a society where people want to connect. It's something we really want to do. And so I teach people that what you see is not always the true picture. So our bodies age. Our bodies age differently for everybody, but that is the one thing that is going to happen. Our bodies continue to age, okay? The one thing that doesn't age the same as our bodies is our mind, okay? So when I say, and I show this picture to people, a lot of times we look in the mirror and we see who we are. This is not who we were. This is who we actually are. I look in the mirror and I see a 39 to 40-year-old running around with school practices and colleges and different things like that, because I had children very early in life. And now I see a grandmother of 6 who tries to make every single practice and sports thing, plus travel for my job and be in different states, and I'm super duper busy, because life's all about being busy. But if I mentally stopped aging at 39 and 40, I connect really well with people who are in their 40s. So I'd like to ask, can I pick on you? Because you've been awesome. Thank you very much. I love the red glasses. How old mentally do you feel?
Probably
60. Okay?
16.
16.
Yes, I have a picture of myself, I think I was 15 or 16, and I have it by my bed with other pictures. But that inner
You
child-
relate.
Yes.
You
I have a
relate
strong inner child.
to yourself at 16. You really relate to yourself then. How old does everybody feel mentally? Anybody want to share? 28. Yep. I used to have a partner. She helped logistics and stuff like that, and she loved this question because she's like 44. and has little twins, and she runs her own crazy. But every time I ask this question, she goes, I'm 29. I just want to stay 29. Anybody else want to share how old mentally you feel? Ladies, you've been super. No?
Maybe 40.
Maybe 40?
Yeah, I'd say 40.
40?
I have a friend from kindergarten.
Yeah?
And when we talk, say we feel like we're 14 again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that we're back in high school and we're, even when we're talking about our kids or our grandkids, it's still, we're like 14-year-olds. We can't believe we have children and grandchildren.
Right?
It's beyond our comprehension.
You know, sometimes, I don't have a whole lot of friends from my younger years. We moved around quite a bit. But sometimes when I reconnect with somebody, like I ran to Walmart, true story, because I ran out of Pledge, and it was the closest store. And I decided to pledge all the wood in my 3-season porch. I don't know why I thought that was a good idea. The next day, I stood up and I was like, I had muscles right here I never even knew I had. But I ran into somebody that I had known late teens, early 20s, and she just started talking, and then I started remembering things, and it was like, it's almost like that was somebody else's life, right? Like that far back, I was like, is that a movie? Did I dream that? Oh my gosh, that really happened in life. But when we identify with a certain age, like 16 or 40, that's where our brain is. That's where we aged, and it kind of stopped. Now, that doesn't mean, like we were talking earlier, right? And it doesn't mean that you're like, oh God, what's that word? What's that word? What's that word? Or let me get back to that. I mean, that's normal for anyone. Our brains can only hold so much information, right? But I want you to think about, just because you look in the mirror and there are wrinkles, right? And we have this whole thing in the United States about anti-aging. Let's talk about anti-aging for a second. So anti-aging or pro-aging is a new concept, right? It's been around for a little while, where we talk about hashtag pro-aging. If you do some research on pro-aging, it's really about being okay with your hair going gray, being okay with the laugh lines, right? Because, hey, I laughed. The wrinkles, the crow's feet here, because I smiled a lot. These are all things that we should be extremely proud of, and I totally agree with that. It's also about eating better and exercising and taking care of yourself, which is, by the way, one of the reasons why we live longer is because we're more conscious of the things we do and the impact it has on us as we age. But, and if you want to do Botox or dye your hair, I'm like, go for it. Like, if whatever you want to do, go for it. I mean, in true transparency, I decided to go gray, and I let my hair go for 6 months, and then I was like, there's got to be a better transition between dark hair and white hair. So I went in and said, can you fix this? Like, I want to go gray. I'm ready to go gray. But can we have a different transition? So she helped me out there. And so you can absolutely do whatever you want to stop the outward part of aging. No shame here. No shame at all. But we need to think about aging in a different perspective. So if you talk about aging powerfully, which is the topic of this session today, which thank y'all for coming, because I'm very passionate about this as I age, I think we just need to view things differently. And so aging in most other countries is celebrated. It's absolutely celebrated. Why is it celebrated? Does anybody know? Yes. Wiser, things like that. So, anybody ever feel like this?
Oh, Miss Threadgood, I'm too young to be old, and I'm too old to be young. Maybe I'm just going crazy.
Anybody ever feel like that? Like, it's kind of like when you're, what are you, about 15? You know, you're like, okay, I'm an adult now, but wait, I'm a little kid. 16, I'm an adult, but I'm a kid. Like, where do I fit at in society? So when you think about aging, and you think about the baby boomer generation, and you think about Generation X, and again, we like to label things. So this is us clumping people in. Not everybody fits into this category, but some do. So aging is about the knowledge you've gained, the experiences that you've been through, different things like that. So if you had to say baby boomers, there's like a lot. You guys can shout out what I've missed. I mean, this could be a whole PowerPoint on what we've lived through. But Beatlemania happened, the moon landing. Baby boomers actually were the creators of the burbs, which actually created consumerism. Because everybody lived in the cities. There were no suburbs until, hey, yes, they came back, yes ma'am. And it was like, you know what, we need to create like our own communities. So the suburbs actually were developed. So if you think about the baby boomers in the room, you created the suburbs. How we see and live in the suburbs today was created by the baby boomers. And consumerism was created by the baby boomers. So in other words, hey, I want this fancy refrigerator, or hey, I want this new car, or I need Pop-Tarts. Anybody watch the Pop-Tart movie yet? I can't wait. I haven't seen it yet. I'm super excited about the Pop-Tart movie. And then the baby boomers, it's horrible food. It's just absolutely horrible for you. But I grew up eating those things. I survived. The baby boomers also created social equality. It's quite interesting because when you think about the first sit-ins at colleges and the first marches against protests and things of that nature, that was done by the baby boomer. When you think about the birth control pill, y'all created the birth control pill. Thanks to my generation, we learned how to use it. Baby boomers are actually known as activists, social change agents, and freedom seekers. So for the baby boomers in the room, I want you to actually think about what you've done in your life. The good and the bad, by the way. Because how do we learn? We learn by making mistakes. I teach the people that I work with that I would much rather you fail, isn't that right, Jeff? And then I will help you dust off your knees and set you back. Because from failure, we learn. We learn. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. My boss says to me all the time, wow, you take risks I never would. Some risks pay off and some don't, but I learn from the ones that don't pay off. And so then you take a look at Generation X. We really jumped into the diversity. We're very self-reliant, we're flexible, and we're very skeptical. Does anybody know why that generation is that way? Why Generation X is that? We're also known as the latchkey generation. We spend a lot of time on our own, but we're creative. We're resourceful. Okay? We did Woodstock, kind of like Beatlemania, but way more peace, love, and rock and roll. We also created MTV and pop culture as we know it today. We lived through the AIDS epidemic and we had the Just Say No war on drugs, right? So we became somewhat similar activists to the baby boomers, because who basically raised us, okay? We also started seeing a lot of corporate layoffs, we had energy crisis, and we created the personal computer. Do you all remember, well, I'll get to that in a minute. Copiers.
When I first started to work, we had mimeograph, and we had carbon paper. And we had no copiers, copiers were not, and I was the first office to see the first fax machine. And I remember the
Give me a
four of us-
high five, look at that.
The four of us were standing around this little white machine and we're getting something from Japan. And we're all like, whoa, you know, because we telexed. I telexed to Japan with a little strip and you put it in, you typed it and put it in the phone thing and
Yeah.
go through. So as far as computers and whatever, yeah.
Did you learn how to, you learned how to use that, right? That was something new.
I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
Working there part-time, and the entire, it was for Baker Tubbs Furniture, and the entire billing department quit because they didn't want to learn the computer. It was unbelievable, and that was my first chance, yeah.
That was those baby boomers. I love it. Anybody else have anything they want to share about what you learned in your generation that changed drastically? My 16-year-old.
I was born in 42. So
Okay.
I was like on the cusp be a mommy
Yeah.
and not think about, and that's why I think I'm still 16, because I wanted to be an engineer.
Mhm.
Because I was moving into
Yes.
the next era,
Which-
but had to actually fight for it.
Well, actually, the baby boomers, I had it in here and I thought it might be a little controversy, and I tried to keep this as PC as possible. But the baby boomers actually created the feminist movement. I mean, yes, there were the suffragettes a long, long time ago, but the baby boomers were the first ones to say, no. Yes, ma'am.
The opportunity for sports. I mean, that,
Yes.
I was right there when they, when it was allowed women to do sports in high school and at a competitive level as opposed to, can't sweat, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cheerleader.
You could be a cheerleader.
But I couldn't be
You-
I couldn't be on the chess team.
Right?
It's crazy.
Right?
I could play.
This
in
is going
school,
so
but
good.
not to travel. It was only the boys.
Yes, only boys. So the baby boomers, the women in the baby boomer generation decided, I'm just as smart. They're just as capable. Thank you very much. So I want you guys to understand that this is what we've done, right? This is how society's labeled us. These are the things that we've lived through. And here's our contributions to society. The baby boomer kept it and created the sense of family by creating, the family unit. We also have, baby boomers, a really high worth ethic. You're known, right? You worked a lot. You got your sense of purpose from what you did and the contributions, because remember, activists, social change agents, and freedom seekers. Okay? That is who you are. Think about who you are. Not what society says you are, but who you are. Okay? So you did that. You have that. You're very goal-oriented people. You have list makers, right? So, and everybody loved here. You make lists. I make them, lose them, make them again, lose them, make them again. But if you think about it, the baby boomer generation said, hey, I want this. And they can actually write a plan from here to here. How many people today can write a plan from here to here? Can or choose to. Thank you.
Sorry.
No. Oh my gosh. This is what I love. I should have said you only get out of this as much as you put into it. Right? So you also created that sense of community. The baby boomers were the ones who said, we're going to create the burbs, we're going to have a sense of community, we're going to create our families. Not only did we make them, we created them with our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors, right? Gen Xers, wow. Just so you know, in today's economy, Gen Xers make up 31% of the US economy, even though we're only 19% of the population. Okay? We created pop culture. You're very, very welcome. We created video games. I'm sorry. That's all I have to say. I have a 15-year-old grandson, and literally, I want to rip it out of his hand. We actually created blogging. Joe was a Gen Xer that sat down and said, I'm going to type out my story. And I'm going to start doing this online. Away went print. We actually created social media, believe it or not. I can't remember the name of it. I should have wrote it down. But Mark Zuckerberg, right? He's the one that created Facebook. It was actually before MySpace. It was called Nexter or some sort of something like that. It was actually really, do you remember what I'm talking about?
Yeah, one time where you said Nexter.
Yeah, and there was MySpace. For the future, I will write this down. But again, the brain can only hold so much information, and I don't like to read things. I like to just collect it and talk to you. So social media, Mark Zuckerberg actually found this when he was in college and created, he also saw MySpace and created Facebook, which, you're welcome, Facebook, we're their highest demographic. Their demographics on Facebook right now is the older adult. Okay? We created Google and Amazon. And again, you're welcome. Where would you live today without Google and GPS maps and ordering it from Amazon. I have invited my entire team to my home on Monday, and thank you, Amazon, for ordering stuff to make sure it got there, because I don't have time to go to a store, because I'm in Chicago, and I won't be back to Minnesota till Friday. So I want you to think about, everybody in this room is known as change, and innovation is what we're known for. You're not known for your age. I want you to stop thinking about how old you are. And I want you to start thinking about what you've done, how you've done it, what you've lived through, good and bad, right? That is who we are. It's our accomplishments, it's our failures, it's what our careers were, it's what we did in retirement. You know, retirement to the baby boomers was a horrible word. So the baby boomers in here, how do you feel about retirement? Did you feel like they were like, they don't want me anymore, I'm gonna retire? To Gen Xers, they're like, I'm never retiring. Or when I do retire, I'm gonna do something different. Because we don't sit still very well, a lot of us. So think about that. One of the things, and you and I were talking about this earlier this morning, both of these generations have a huge sense of responsibility. Responsibility for our children, our grandchildren, parents, work. I forgot to put spouse up there, but we're responsible for our spouses. He loves me, I love him, he won't be offended. So we have this innate thing about we have to make sure everybody's okay. That's who we are. So do you guys remember the big foreclosure housing crisis between 2007 and 2010? Okay. I worked in 281 units in one of them and 79 units in another, and it was like the first ever, it wasn't labeled this, but it was truly an active adult. Everybody that lived there was 55 and older. There weren't meals or anything like that. It was just apartment buildings with pools and, you know, golf carts that you drove around. And I remember all of a sudden I started getting all of these move-out notices. And I was like, where is everybody going? They started moving in with their children to help save their houses. They went back to work to try to help. Really, did anybody do that in 2007? Anybody in here? It was actually quite interesting. But we do have this huge sense of responsibility. And with this huge sense of responsibility, we also have a lot of guilt. Anybody in here experience guilt? And I'm going to specifically speak to the adult children in the room. And here's my plug for senior living, but we're going to move past it very quickly. Full disclosure, I will always be honest. And so we have this innate responsibility, and that if we can't do it all because we did it all, then we have guilt that we didn't do it. And we have a really hard time asking for help because we have a fear of failure. Okay? Am I speaking to anybody in this room? Do y'all agree with what I'm saying? So I am an adult child, and so my parents needed some help. Now my parents are very young, in my opinion, they're very young, but their bodies are not, right? My mom, if I spoke to my mom like she was a 75-year-old woman, she would reach over and slap me. True story. But if I talk to her like a 50-year-old woman who still goes out and karaoke's with her friends and stuff like that, now she can't move for 3 days after that, but you know. So we started looking at help. That was a really dirty word. Really dirty word. Help is a dirty, dirty word to our generations. But we need to start going back to looking at all of these things and who we are and realize we are not failures, and that is okay to get help. Because if you see how society's changed over the course of all these years and everything that you've done to influence the change in society, the people that created home care and the people that created independent livings and active adults. Like, what is that? Aren't we all, hopefully, active adults? But anyway, there's all these different terminologies that we've created. The same people who created them and wanted something different and for them to be better, they are. They're different. They're better. So if you haven't looked, go look. Talk to somebody. Not all of them are great, but some of them are fantastic. So there's my plug for senior healing. Let's go on to this. So perceptions are people's reality, right? And to change the way society looks at aging, for us to like really take a look at what it means to age in the United States, we have to start first with our perception. So everybody, want to do a little exercise with me? You can stay seated. I promise you don't have to get up. Okay? You ever done this before? Okay. See, I really relate to you in the 40s, right? And you sat in the right seat. So I want everybody, I'm going to turn around so you can see me, so we're all going in the same direction, okay? I want you to take your finger, your pointer finger, everybody find one, and I want you to look up to the ceiling, okay? And I want you to put your pointer finger at the ceiling, and I want you to imagine there is a clock on the ceiling, okay? And the clock, put your finger right at the 12, then put your finger at the 3, your finger at the 6, the finger at the 9, and then a back at the 12. And I want you to do this in a circular motion, staring at the clock. Keep your eyes on the clock on the ceiling and start to lower your hand. I want you to keep lowering your hand. Keep lowering it. Stare at the clock. Stare at the clock. Stare at the clock. Get it down below your nose, down below your chin, and I want you to look down at your finger, and it's actually going a different direction. When you go this way, it works for some people because some people are so that the finger has to stay this direction. But most people, when you get your finger down here and you're doing this, your fingers actually change direction, but your finger didn't change, it didn't. It didn't change direction. What changed was how you were looking at your finger. You're looking down at your finger. Just see what I'm... So there will be lots of you that go home tonight and go, what? I'm going to keep doing this until I get this right, because your finger actually doesn't change, but how you look at your finger makes it look like it's going a different direction. All that changed was your perception of how you're looking at something. So if you think about how do you change the thoughts on aging, where does it come from? It starts with everybody in the room. Because if you think about it, how many in here think they're old? Mm-hmm. Right? Do you think you're old? Do you?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Not all the time.
Most of the time.
Almost every day.
Yeah.
I was watching all the Olympics. I thought, boy, I never could do that. Watching that now, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a reality check.
Chasing after your granddaughter? Yeah, I have 6 grandchildren, and after they all leave, I stare at the ceiling. But actually, aging is actually a superpower, especially in the United States. If we stop thinking about our number, our age, and what it is, and start looking at what we've done and the wisdom that you've accomplished. It says it in the write-up, another creative marketing person put together, like you take a look at aging powerfully is looking at yourself as what superpowers you have, because you've accumulated wisdom. You've got trial and error on your side. How many times have you tried something, failed it, but you know how it works? How many of you can actually write a plan that actually has a successful outcome? Think about our generations that are coming up right this moment, and think about the 2 generations that we have sitting in this room. Okay? Aging starts with us and how we view ourselves. So if you think about, I can't do that. I can't be in the Olympics. Well, at our age, we couldn't be in the Olympics. However, if you're still of able body, because aging has a couple of different things, right? There's physically aging and then there's mentally aging. So I'm going to speak to both of those for a second. There is a gentleman, his name is Mr. Singh, and at 89, nobody's in here is 89, right? Nobody's 89? Okay, great. At 89, he decided, I'm going to take up running. At 90, he ran his first marathon. He's now ran marathons in Hong Kong, London, and Toronto. Anybody ever heard of him? He had a children's book written about him because he wanted to inspire children about aging. Right? How old do you think the oldest person is who's graduated from college? 90. Yep. Oh, no, I'm sorry, 95. She's 95. And she lives in Kansas. Okay? So if you think about aging powerfully, and how do we change how we look at aging in the United States, we stop calling ourselves old. And we start looking at, what is it that I still want to do? What is it that I not can do? Because can really is a mental state. I had a teacher once in elementary school, and she said, Wanda, because I would go, I can't do that. I just can't do that. And she goes, can't never could. Right? When you say I can't, that means you never, ever will. Okay? Our brains are very powerful things. We can talk ourselves into something, and we can talk ourselves out of something. So when you think about how do we change the perception of aging, we start with ourselves, and it's about telling your stories, good and bad. It's about stop referencing yourself as old and start really educating this generation on how we did what we did. Because we learn from history. How often does history repeat itself? I don't know about y'all, but I don't ever want to wear bell-bottom jeans again. And I see them, and I'm like, oh, God, why? Why did they bring that back? But history repeats itself. Always does. So we want to make sure that we're telling our stories, that you identify with someone and you mentor them. Like Kristen. Kristen's running around here. Have y'all met Kristen? Okay, well, Kristen's young. And she's got full of energy. And I can't remember your name. What's your name? Dennis. Dennis and I were talking about, like, she's just so perky, right? And she's got so full of energy. And I think, Dennis, you said something about, when it's positive energy, but you lose that energy as you age, right? You only lose that energy because you allow yourself and you tell yourself, oh, I'm too old for that. Okay? So mentor that young person, grow the younger person. And that younger person, by the way, could be 50. Young is also a relative term. Young is somebody that's not your age. Look up young in the Webster Dictionary. It's pretty much not old. But you can't define old. Because in 1965, you died at 66. You know what I'm trying? And today, we're going to live to 82 or longer because we take better care of ourselves. And it's about taking care of ourselves. Self-care is in there as well. And positively talking about, yes, I can. The more you say to the younger generation, well, I'm 80 and can't do that any longer. Now, you physically might not be able to do it, but you mentally can. And you can talk about it, right? Our bodies don't always cooperate, but just because your body isn't cooperating doesn't mean you're old. And to the actual Gen Xers in the room, it's about going for the promotion. We make up 55% of the bosses in the United States today. I'm sorry, we represent 55% of the startups in the United States today. 55%. So if you think about it, I don't care what age you are, if you have a great idea, now is the time to launch it. I mean, in the age of social media, where you don't even need to You know, how many of you bought something off Facebook? You're never going to find it in a store. You're never going to, like, shoes, clothes, hair products, makeup. Like, today's the time. How many of you ever watched Grace and Frankie? If you have not watched Grace and Frankie on Netflix, it is absolutely fabulous. They're in their 80s. They started a company. I won't say what the company is because it's not politically correct. But when you think about aging as a superpower, it's about aging purposefully. Stop saying you're old. You are not old. You are intelligent. You're what?
Seasoned.
You're seasoned. Yeah. So it's so funny. ChatGPT. I've been anti-ChatGPT because then I'll lose my ability to think on my own. Right? So last night, it's midnight, and I was like, God, there's got to be a better word than active aging, and there's got to be a better word than old or aging in general. Like, I'm going to download ChatGPT and see what it says. So I downloaded ChatGPT last night, and I said, I need a word that combines old and aging positively. And it said blooming flower or some sort of something like that. And I thought, I need something that's more powerful than that. And it gave me a different word about vitality. And it gave me the definition. It'll give you definitions of it. And I thought, well, that's a decent word. Then I said, I need something sexier, like in ChatGPT. And then it gives me a word I can't pronounce. But it gives me the definition of it. We're so, like last night, I was like, the epitome is looking for a label. I was looking for a label, right? And there isn't a label. In Japan, they take out giant billboards on their parents' and grandparents' birthdays to celebrate. And they go to them for advice, and they seek them out because they want to be better. We need to start doing that in the United States. We need to get people's attentions. We need to tell the stories of what you've done. Anybody have any grandchildren that did sit-ins in colleges over the current political, the wars that are currently going on out there, right? If you have those, talk about what you did, how you did it peacefully, different things like that. It's time to take that knowledge and really fulfill your purposes. So if you think you have a sense of responsibility, right? And you really know who you are, get people's attention. It's time to make noise. It's time to get loud and tell our stories, right? You don't have to run a marathon. I don't have a want or a desire to run a marathon, but I do have a want and a desire. And that is to really change the perspective on aging, because one day I'm going to need help. I'm going to need help. And I want to feel okay about asking for help, but I want to continue my mission. I was mid to late 20s, and I'm a grandmother's girl. My grandmother spent a lot of time with me. I was an only grandchild. She picked me up every Friday from school. I spent every weekend with her. And at 10, my parents decided to move to Minnesota from Jacksonville, Florida. And they ripped me away from my grandmother. That was devastating. And she was 79 when she decided she shouldn't live alone and she was going to move to Minnesota. So I flew down there, rented a U-Haul, packed her up, and drove her to Minnesota. She had diabetes, COPD, like you name it. She had lots of things. She lived a fun life. Let me just tell you, I idolized this woman. She worked at Maxwell Health Coffee since she was 14. She ran the lines at Maxwell Health Coffee. I love coffee because it smells like her. And she was a very powerful woman in her own right. She never would have said she was old. Never. She went out singing. She went out dancing, pretty much basically until the day she died, right? But she fell. She had a diabetic issue, and she fell and she hit her head and she went in the hospital. So I got the call. I rushed to the hospital. I'm having conversations with her. And I started thinking she needs more help and I can't always be there. So I started looking at senior housing for her, and I was absolutely appalled. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. Here's a woman who never would have said she's old. At 9, I watched Porky's with her. I'm just going to give you a little concept of who my grandmother was, okay? She would come home on Friday nights and wake me up at midnight, and we would dance in the living room. She was just so full of life, and she'd bring me leftovers. They were called jip joints, in Jacksonville, Florida. And she'd bring leftovers, and we'd dance, and we'd eat leftovers, and she'd tell me all about her night, okay? So I started looking at senior housing, and I started looking at people in wheelchairs. And yeah, she had COPD, so she walked with a walker, and she had to sit down often. But she never let that stop her from doing what she wanted to do, ever. And so right then and there, I realized I can't work in multifamily anymore. So you want to know why I do what I do? Because society needs to change. As we age, we're still living, and we got a lot of living left to do. And we have a lot of things that we can do to contribute to society. It's not about sitting in a chair doing nothing. It's about continuing your life, what you've done, and what you still can do, and stop telling people you are old. You're telling yourself that. Yes, ma'am?
How old was your grandmother when she passed away?
She was 79. She passed away the year she moved here. Yeah, she was 79. But she lived a hard, fast, and fun life. And she never regretted it. I'd say, are you okay? Like, you're struggling to breathe. She had oxygen. And she'd say, I had fun. I have no regrets. None. So do not walk out of here saying I'm old and I can't, or I wish I did, or I wish I could. Those are words that we really need to remove. Where there is a will, there is a way. She couldn't dance like she used to, but she still danced. She couldn't make biscuits and gravy like she did, but she still did it through me. There are ways. Where there is a will, there's a way. And I want you to think about this before you kind of leave. Anybody ever watch The Bucket List? Okay, that's an amazing movie. One day, your life is going to be like a movie, and it flashes before your eyes. Is it worth watching? I mean, think about that. Did you stop because, hey, I retired at 65. It'll be 70 for me, but I won't retire because I'm a Gen X, and we'll just never stop. We'll take lots of vacations, but we'll just keep going and going and going. But when you flash before your eyes, are you going to think about, I wish I coulda, woulda? Or are you going to say, I lived a life I don't regret? So if you want to change society and how it looks at aging, and you want to age powerfully, it starts with how you look at your own age and the verbiage that you use. So, it's time to just be you. I created a whole entire ad campaign in Texas on just be you. Like, what does that mean? If you think about it, when I create ad campaigns and stuff like that, I think about what does that mean? If I can't articulate what that means, it shouldn't go in print. But when you think about just be you, in today's world, you can talk about your mistakes. People learn from them. So my challenge to all of you is to go figure out how to tell your story. To stop saying I'm old. Think about what it is that you want to do and do it, because it's us doing it that teaches the other generation there's no such thing as old. And in today's society, there really isn't anything, because we can't even define it. Our average age is 40 right now, or for women. That was in 2010. So please, please, go out and be you. Live your story. Age powerfully. Stop calling yourself old. Thank you all for your time. Yes, ma'am.
Yesterday was left-handed day. Okay.
I'm so sorry, what?
Yesterday was left-handed day.
Yes.
And I found this little thing on my phone, and it said, it had the left hand, and it says, "What's your superpower?"
You're left-handed.
Yes.
There's not that many people left-handed.
Halfway.
Halfway.
Yeah. Because I grew up in the bad part.
You couldn't be left-handed.
Yes.
When they tried to retrain you to be right-handed?
Oh, my grandma did every year. She said she would give us $5 if we.
Could write right-handed?
Yes.